happy to be here.
Yeah, for sure. So I think for anybody who doesn't know who Greg is, I'm gonna tag you in your social on a post on my Instagram. So by the time this thing releases, that'll be up. But definitely go check out his work. So you're an artist, a very talented artist, and you focus primarily on Western art and Native American artwork.
Yeah.
So a lot of people may be familiar with your work because of the notoriety it really got behind the Joe Rogan Experience and Joe getting behind your work and really giving you a lot of public view. But maybe if you can give like a brief overview of what it is that you do, kind of how you got to where you are, and then from our conversation the other day, there's a couple of things I wanted to dive into, and I think we'll make organic conversation pretty smooth from there.
All right. Well, I mean, I started doing Western art when I was a little kid. Just saw like Russell and Remington, saw their work in books. My grandma was a painter, like painted landscapes and stuff. So I think there was a lot of books around, like Native American stuff, for me to look at. And so those artists just kind of captivated me. And then the photographs of those old black and whites of like Sitting Bull, Geronimo, all them.
Hmm.
I remember looking at that stuff just being just totally fascinating, right? And so I would kind of just emulate their works, doing watercolors when I was a little kid, and I still have some of them. And it looks a lot like what I'm doing now. So I just always was so into that culture because I think I saw, I mean, and I still see something that's missing from our culture today, which is just this fierce individualism, I would
Hmm.
call it, because in those societies they had a real system of rites of passage where you would rise up and you were this integrated part of the whole, right? And in I think the problem with our society is it's so fragmented. The culture isn't clear. The culture isn't like, I'm a part of this and I belong. It's kind of like it's this consumerist, uh, conformist system that is
Well,
unnatural to a human being,
it's almost
right?
like people feel like if they step out for the day and don't contribute, nobody misses them. Where in those like Native American cultures, if somebody wasn't there to do their job that day, people could possibly die or starve. So there's
Yeah,
like such a higher gravity of their actions on a day-to-day basis.
yeah. It's such more. You're just so much more bonded with your environment, with the tribe. There was definitely no one who was sort of left out.
Yeah.
That was the worst thing that you could do to someone, like in an old Viking society. They didn't have prisons. They wouldn't lock people up. The worst thing you would do to someone was banish them, right? And here it's almost like, God, in our society, dude, everybody's been banished from each other. But we have this sort of pseudo communication where people have these fake identities that are these avatars that we kind of that represent us, which is totally completely unnatural. We're going, why is there all this mental illness and stuff going on with people? Well, they're not meeting face to face. They're not talking to anybody that's kind of like helping them get through things,
Have you
you know?
seen The Social Dilemma, that new documentary that everybody's talking about on
No,
Netflix?
no. I mean, I've been thinking about that stuff for years, just the effect it has on people, how it's like, I remember, like I was talking to my daughter today about this same thing, and I brought up that Beastie Boys song. Everybody's rapping like it's a commercial, and there's no reason for most people to do that. They're not selling anything
Mhm.
except their stupid image that they don't have any reason to sell. It's like you have all the drawbacks of fame with none of the benefits. It's crazy. You have all the downside of fame. You're not making any money. It's like you're a public figure. It's crazy. It's upside down. So that's what draws people to my art is it's just like it's kind of like connecting with some the old school way.
Yeah, we were talking about like I look at your stuff and I'm just like blown away. Like the first time I saw your artwork, it spoke to me. There was so much energy. I don't know if energy is the right word, but there's like energy to it. And we were saying how you were saying I'm not the most skilled painter. Now I would say you're one of the most skilled painters I've ever come across. but I get what you're saying in that term. But it's that approach that you have in the way that you paint, which I think gives your stuff such a energy. You know, back to that word, right?
Well, the Chinese, when they refer to art or when they kind of critique art, they say, "Does it have chi? Does it have chi?" Right, which is energy. And so that, I mean, I think that's a good way to judge art is if it has that emotional content, like what Bruce Lee says at the beginning of Enter the Dragon.
Hmm.
It's the same thing. It's kind of like you can do this beautiful kata, and your movements are all technically precise, but there's no creativity behind it. There's no spirit behind it, so it's totally missing something. There's a lot of artists who are great. They went to art school, they learned all the technique, and they have a real similar palette, and their art really looks a lot alike. You know, most people, and
Hmm.
they're wondering, well, why aren't I breaking out? Why am I not making it? Well, you're not doing anything outside the box. If I can't look at your stuff on a wall and say, oh, they did that because you have a style, then you're not being an artist. You're not actually being creative. You're just emulating what you were taught. The whole point of art, really, you know, the same thing as music. It's trying to get somebody to connect with a human emotion, so they can kind of maybe make it through their life a little bit
Yeah.
better. You know?
Yeah, I was gonna say that. Like, I know you have a musical background, and I'm thinking of it, and it's like there's a lot of guitar players that are out there. You can look on Instagram. There's just countless numbers of people who are so talented. They can play every scale, super fast, super clean, but
Yeah.
it doesn't speak to you like listening to Hendrix. You know, playing on a dirty Strat, kind of missing notes every once in a while, but the feeling that he put into that music,
Yeah.
and you know, and then a guy like Stevie Ray Vaughan that comes behind that, and to your point, like obviously was influenced heavily by Hendrix, but
Right.
had his own touch and flair that he was able to put on top of that and take it to that next place. And you know, it's like I appreciate that type of stuff so much. When you hear a voice like Janis Joplin or Amy Winehouse, and it's not perfect, but it is perfect. You know, it's
Yeah.
it's
Perfectly
exactly what you
imperfect.
need. Yes.
Well, because the truth is, man, if you're trying to do something perfect, make something perfect, all you're really trying to do is show off. And it's kind of like an exercise for your ego to be that perfect and technical. And it's also impossible. And you'll kind of hammer the spirit out of your art.
Yeah.
The Navajo, when they make a blanket, they leave a thread out of place. They call that the spirit thread because like only the creator can make something perfect. You know, the world, all of us, all the animals, but we're not like real creators. We're just kind of, I don't know, recreators, I guess. So we can't, you know, tie our hands by trying to make something perfect. You just have to enjoy making something unique. You know, and if you can tell the truth about how you feel about something with your art, people are going to love it. And because a lot of people are like you know, there's so many similarities with people in every way. So if you kind of speak with your true voice, there's a whole bunch of people out there who are going to totally get that and be like, they're going to see that stuff or they're going to hear that song and they're going to be like, oh yeah, they'll totally agree with it. They'll pay for it. They'll love your music, whatever.
Mhm.
But the thing about being an artist or musician or whatever is a lot of times we play to the audience, you know, or we play to the gallery, which is the biggest mistake you can make. You're already screwed if you think that way at all. You're lying. You know what I mean? You're
Mhm.
totally full of shit. You're trying to think with someone else's mind. You're trying to see with someone else's eyes. You just have to, like, what I always try to do is I think if I was on a desert island and I didn't have anything to do, all I had was some paint and some good canvases and all this stuff and a bunch of time, what would I paint for me? And if you do that, you're going to paint something really cool. People are going to love it. It's going to be honest and totally real. But if you kind of are like anything but that, it'll be diluted and
And
it'll
people can
be
tell.
yeah, because everybody has this like bullshit detector when it comes to people. When you first meet somebody, you can tell if that person would like be dishonest. You just have this gut instinct. People are really good, like just analytical computers, you
That's
know?
what freaks me out about this whole pandemic stuff, man. Like, not to go down a rabbit hole, but you're covering up your face, you're not shaking hands.
Yeah.
I come from a world where when I meet somebody, it's that 30 seconds, that first 30 seconds when I shake their hands and I look in their eyes, that I'm trying to figure them out.
Yeah, either like them or you don't. You relate to them or you don't.
Yeah.
And now everybody's so estranged that all you can see is like a bunch of ninjas with their hoods up and just eyes, and everybody's got these like bewildered eyes, man. It's crazy. It's I mean, it's like geez, I don't know, man. It's totally surreal. I feel like I'm just living in like an episode of the Twilight Zone that won't end. It's like Twilight Zone meets Groundhog Day meets I don't even know what. It's just a
Yeah.
shit show. The world anymore. I mean, I can't believe it. And it's like you can't even say what you think or you're gonna piss off half the people and they're gonna come at you and you know try to cancel you or whatever just because I disagree with you. Is it like there's no freedom of speech anymore? I can't say, well, I think this is bullshit that you're doing. I think that's bullshit that they're doing. Like I thought that's what America was supposed to
And
be about, is state
that's
their own
that's what makes
opinion.
us great. That's I mean,
Yeah,
that is what like makes us grow as individuals, is not by whitewashing and telling everybody this is how you have to do it, but by allowing, I mean, it's unfortunate. It's the unfortunate truth, but progress, real progress is made by making mistakes and learning from those mistakes.
yeah.
Otherwise, it's just disingenuous. It's not real. And I don't know, it skeeves me out. I get a weird feeling about it, but
But nobody's willing to do that because it's like, you know, the magician, the art of distraction. That's what they're doing to us. They're going, coronavirus, oh my God. It's you know, and I mean, I don't know, dude. Nobody knows because it's the not the information age, it's the misinformation age where you know, all the media outlets, it's just like, well, they basically work for one side or the other. So
mhm.
you can't even trust them. It's not even a thing anymore to separate fact from opinion and to say this is an editorial statement I'm about to make. You're supposed to make that disclaimer, and the press is supposed to be a noble occupation. It's supposed to almost be another branch of the government back in the day that worked for the people.
Yeah.
That really was a watchdog on the government. And now it's just well, they're a bunch of shills, you know,
It's
for
disappointing
one
on
side or the other.
Yeah, it doesn't matter which channel you tune into. You know what I mean? I get sick of hearing that too. It's like, oh, whenever I watch CNN, it's like, look, man, it's the same on both sides. Sean
Yeah,
Hannity's just as big of an asshole as Don Lemon is you know what I mean? It's just like, but I get it. They've got to sell, and it's
yeah.
crazy because I would have thought that the age of information with the internet would have made it so that things were so clear that there wasn't any confusion because you could just find the answer. But I think everybody missed that it would also open up the door for all kinds of bullshit information and make it so that you
Total.
don't know
Yeah.
what's true and what isn't.
Yeah. And that's, I mean, a good way to kind of sabotage any institution is to spread misinformation about it. You know, I read this book by Robert Anton Wilson years ago, Prometheus Rising, that talked about subversive literature. Like if you wanted to target, and this is back in like the analog time. So if you wanted to target some school or something, let's say you wanted to mess with their minds, you would throw a bunch of flyers in the hall that says there's school on Saturday now, and everyone would just freak out. There's no school on Saturday, but everyone would freak out, you know. And that's just a small example of what they're doing to us in every way. And it's kind of like, you know, Japanese say the nail that stands up will be pounded down. So people are afraid to speak up about this. Even myself, I think, you know, I was a punk rocker when I was a kid. I've always hated authority, mistrusted the government, and it's just gotten worse. I mean, I'm successful at what I do. I have a family and everything, but I'm just like, man, this system that we live in is so corrupt. I live in Salt Lake City, and the air here gets so bad in the winter you can barely breathe. It's like Beijing,
Hmm.
right? I mean, I go snowboarding a lot, and so I'm up in the mountains most of the winter, out of the bad air. Every time I come back in the valley, I'm just like sick with how they let it get. And the governor here, this guy Gary Herbert, he just lets the companies Mort Thiokol and Kennecott just pollute the shit out of this valley and kill people. And they're going, well, don't drink. Watch out for your drunk driving. Don't smoke. It's like you guys are all taking years off your life just doing this, you know. And that guy's supposed to be a leader. I mean, How do people like that sleep at night? You
Well, and
know?
then they put themselves behind a position like abortion or gay rights or something that's like very touches on somebody at the deepest, and then they look past all of those other things, and you
Yeah.
stand for somebody because of these moral positions that they pretend to take in a lot of cases, but are you so I mean, you seem to know, a lot of history. Did you have like an interest in history growing up where you like really like into that type of stuff? I was always into history, so it's like for me it resonates. But
Yeah, I mean, I've always read a lot about Native American history, and that's how I researched most of my art. Was just getting into books like reading biographies about Crazy Horse, about Sitting Bull, Geronimo. I've read all their life stories, so it's kind
Mhm.
of like that's where I started off with my art for sure. But then, as I keep going, I travel to different reservations and meet people, and I realize it's not just a history thing. I mean, I went up to South Dakota, and I thought, I mean, I didn't know what to expect. I got invited to this artist ride thing where all the most well, not the most, but like some of the most popular Western artists go up there to take photographs. It's like a bunch of reenactors go up there so you can get good reference photos, right? And I didn't know what to expect, but I went up there and met this Lakota family that's still, I mean, they still raise their horses, they still train them to race, they still, it was just amazing to me that the culture's still alive. Like I raced these dudes in my car. I hung out with them for about 3 days and camped out with them and heard stories and stuff, and we made good friends. But I was amazed that the culture is still, it's still thriving despite all of the oppression and the bullshit that they've put them through, trying to really kill this culture. It was an attempt at a genocide. I mean, it really was to put them out there on a reservation on an island, just starve them, just go, well, we're going to give you these annuities, we're going to give you just a minimum amount of resources, and just let's see if you survive. So, and they've been out there for over 100 years now, and it's a testament to their strength of character and strength of will that they haven't just all completely disappeared. And those cultures are still strong, man. They're still surviving. Those people still have their like the core of their culture is still alive, and it's growing. It's pretty cool to see.
yeah, you told me a really interesting thing, which was that your mentor in a lot of ways was Michael Blake,
Yeah,
who wrote Dances with Wolves.
yeah.
And you were telling me how that story came to be, and it's kind of impacted how you paint, right? And if you could tell that, because I won't do it justice, but it was so interesting to me.
Well, I met Michael Blake through the Leonard Peltier Defense Committee. I don't know if a lot of people these days even know who Leonard Peltier is, but he's a guy who's in federal prison in Fort Leavenworth, who was framed for killing these FBI agents. Nobody knows who really killed them, but if you research the case, this guy got railroaded. They coerced a bunch of people into testifying against him. Robert Redford made a movie about him called Incident at Oglala. The Val Kilmer movie, Thunderheart, is kind of loosely based on him. But anyway, I read this book of his called Prison Writings. And it just really, I don't know, something about that book just got to me. And I had to get a hold of Leonard and talk to him. And he's a painter. So I got a bunch of his art transported out of the prison to show up in Park City, right? Uh, and I got Michael Blake. I got a hold of him. I didn't know him before, but I asked him to come be the guest speaker at the show. And so he shows up, and kind of had a lot in common with him. He was involved in punk rock in the early days and was friends with this band called X, which was like the first concert that I ever went to. So we just ended up becoming really good friends, and stayed in touch with him after he went home to Arizona or something. I just call him and talk to him once in a while about this is years ago when I was first getting started in art, and he would give me advice just about how to just artistic vision and being true to yourself and not playing to the audience, and just kind of like following your dreams completely no matter what, and dreaming big. And this is from an Academy Award winner movie that I had just always loved since I saw it. It really inspired me, right? And I was I was stoked to be friends with somebody like that. He told me that the way he came up with that movie was he heard this story about a supply train uh, right around the time of the Civil War in like the 1860s had gone out um, to a camp like in South Dakota or somewhere, or maybe it was in Texas. I can't remember where it was, but they went out to an army fort, and the fort had been abandoned. Nobody knows what happened to the people who were staying there, and the guy just turned around and went back to like the supply fort. And he thought, well, what if I was there, and what if I stayed, and just imagined it from there. So that really kind of hit me, because when people are successful and they offer you that advice, you should listen to it. So what I try to do with my paintings is I really do try to think, if I was there at that time, what do I think I would see? You know what I mean? I try to put myself there really with my imagination, which you have the ability to do, and then believe in what you see and then bring it back, right? That's the job of an artist, like Terrence McKenna says that. He says the job of an artist is to go into the void, find a piece of something that'll help people and bring it back. Bring back proof that you killed the dragon. You know what I mean? Because anybody could say, I just killed the dragon. But it's like, well, what do you got? Where's the gold? That's what art is. That's what art is. That's what a good movie is. It's somebody that learns something about what it is to be human and can share that with other people and then help them like be a better human, I guess, which is a pretty high calling. You know what I mean?
No, but
So if you can do that, you're lucky.
Yeah, no, and I love like, I'm somebody who's constantly imagining. Like, I always was a daydreamer as a kid. I never translated it into art. I'm not really much of an artist, but when you told me that, it really spoke to me, because I've thought about situations and I always place myself there. It's kind of the way that I think about things, is I put myself there and imagine it. But when I imagine it, it's not like I'm really basing it off of a strict timeline of events. It's really just on my own imagination. So to be able to take that and put it into art is resonates.
Well, it's like, man, if you're lucky enough to have a few good teachers in life, dude. I mean, I owe so much to good teachers. There was this my teacher in high school who taught. I had her in a class British literature, and I was the worst student. I think I had like a 0.666 grade point average, like all Fs. You know what I mean? I would draw on the desks. I was the pariah of the school, just this raspy looking punk rock kid, and all I did was draw these skulls and demons and shit. And none of the teachers liked me or thought I was, anybody with any talent or brains at all. Like, I was a delinquent as far as they were concerned, right? But there's one teacher, and I remember going into the class, and she was teaching about Beowulf, right, which I'd never heard about, and she's teaching Shakespeare, Macbeth, and that stuff was medieval, and that interested me. I was like, oh, okay, this stuff's pretty cool. And she explained it so I could understand. And when I would draw stuff on the desk, like in permanent marker, she'd take a picture of it and give it to me and say, oh, that's cool, and give me drawing assignments. And she sponsored me to get into a gifted and talented class, which I'd never been in before. Everybody in the gifted and talented class was like, what the hell is Overton doing in here? He's not, he's supposed to be in detention. Like, you got it all mixed up. It's no, he's an artist. This kid's going somewhere, And then after I ended up getting kicked out of that school, and I was gone for a few years, somehow she tracked me down and sent me a letter, little card saying, get a portfolio. I know you're going to be this great artist. It was my high school teacher. And she was a super cool lady. Like, I really respected her. And it meant a lot that one teacher kind of believed in me, where everybody else was going, you're never getting anywhere with that art. You're going to be, a ditch digger. That's what they would say back then. You're going to be a ditch digger. If you don't get a job, you know what I mean? But I was enough of a rebel that I didn't listen to people. And, when I was like 20 years old, I found a book by Howard Turpning with Native American art. I saw that movie, Dancing with Wolves. And I remembered how much I loved Western art. And I mostly did pen and ink stuff, like comic books, album covers, and stuff like that before that. And then got back into painting. trying to get oil painting, but I never really went to school for it. I just taught myself how to do it, which is why my stuff's a little different. I'm glad I didn't go to school. I'm glad I
Mhm.
hated school, because I think school is just it can be a prison for your mind, to quote the Matrix, uh, a little bit, if you don't question it, and you don't really, excuse me, use that education, with a really discerning mind, and actually put that scientific method to work with everything that they're teaching you. Really question it as you're going along. Don't just digest it without questioning it. You know what I mean? Which a lot of people do, and then they fall into these shitty lives where they're like, "Oh man, I obeyed everything that they told me to do. I graduated on time. I went to the college they said. I got the job they said, and they hate it."
There's a quote out there. It's most men live lives of silent desperation,
Yep.
and it's so
Uh,
true. And as I get
Yeah.
older, I see it in people that I went to school with, and friends that I used to have or that I don't keep in contact with as much, that I don't really relate to, because you can see it in their eyes when you come across them. It's like you feel a sense of sadness because they're just realizing it now too. Like, oh man.
Yeah. It's that psychological process. I can't remember what it was. But some psychological stage in life is like this versus that. You know what I'm talking about? And
Mhm.
when you're sort of middle aged, you kind of have, oh, I'm satisfied with what I did, versus, God, I really have regret. And that's where you're at. And I think, like, I just turned 50, and I'm kind of looking at my life going, well,
That
I did a
blows my
lot.
mind. I'm sorry, man. You being 50 just blows my mind. If you didn't say that, I wouldn't believe it.
I just turned 50. Imagine how I feel. Shit. But no, and it's not bad. I don't care, as long as, like, I feel good at 50, and I don't feel like, God, all my best days are behind me, and my life's
Mhm.
a fucking joke. And, that when you look at yourself like, man, I didn't do it right. That's the cool thing, is if you can go, man, I still love to do all, I still go skateboarding. I still go snowboarding, like, every day that I can. I still, practice Muay Thai every day. I still, up until uh, a few years ago, when I got a couple really bad rib breaks from training jujitsu, I was still doing jujitsu. It's just nowadays, when you go back, I mean, I learned jujitsu a long time ago when it was chill. Nowadays, you go back and everybody's training for tournaments, man, and they're killers. And there's like collegiate wrestlers in there just kicking your ass, and you're like, dude, I'm just coming in here trying to get in shape. It's like, you're not in shape. Go home. Oh God. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I've spent the last couple of years just trying to work on strength and conditioning. So you can keep it together, and just flexibility, man, is so important. When you get to be this age, you start losing your flexibility. If you don't stretch, you're just like, I can't even kick above my waist. Look like Sam Elliott in Roadhouse trying to throw a kick.
Yeah. Flexibility is so big, and I watched some of the David Goggins videos and such. I mean, he suffered big time from flexibility issues with his psoas, where it was
Yeah.
like causing pain in his neck and headaches and all kinds of stuff. So I've I certainly I try, but I struggle to even touch my toes sometimes. I feel like.
Well, the Chinese have this method. Their martial arts are so, like, diverse and advanced, but the Shaolin monks have this method called Tongzigong, right? Which is like Chinese yoga, basically. They're kung fu stretching, and they say if you don't practice Tongzigong, you're going to have martial arts until you're about 50, and they're just going to go after that. So that's what I've been trying to focus on, and probably not doing enough, but just
Yeah.
making sure you do that yoga. It'll make all the difference. I remember years ago, like, I started out doing like Kempo and Chinese Kung Fu, Hung Gar, real traditional Chinese stuff. And I everywhere I go back then, I go check out the Kung Fu school, which where there were a lot of those back then. This is before UFC and stuff. People still going to the Kung Fu school. And I went to this one Kung Fu school, and I went on a trip to San Diego. And I was probably like 22 or something back then. And there's this guy there. He's like 35 or something. His kung fu was amazing, super flexible, really powerful. I was like, dude, and I thought 35 was old, right? How are you still doing this when you're 35? So, I do yoga. I'm doing yoga. I'm like, well, what the hell is yoga? And this is, this is 1992, so there's no yoga schools around. Nobody knows what yoga is. And years later, when I enrolled in community college, I saw a yoga class. And so I signed up for it, started getting into yoga, and it was cool because it was just me and a whole bunch of college girls in that class stretching. I was like, I like this yoga. And so I took that for like a semester and then just bought videos and stuff after that and kept doing it. And I'm not like good at yoga, but it's helped my flexibility for sure. It helped in jujitsu when I got into that. I got into jujitsu because I got injured really bad doing kung fu. I was so into kung fu. I loved it. Trained like northern and southern styles with a couple of good masters for about 6 years, but just had so, because I'm so tall, I'm like 6'5". Those low stances just aren't made for me, and it tweaked out my knees. You got all these knee surgeries. My friend John was like, "Dude, come train jujitsu." And I'd seen Pedro Sauer actually when he moved to the U.S. He started teaching at my kung fu school, so I'd seen jujitsu, but I was just like, I didn't get it. Nobody had seen UFC yet, and I was just kind of like, dudes in gis just wrestling. I don't know. It doesn't, it didn't really make sense to me. But then a few years later, I wanted to train some martial art, so I got into that. Went to a Walt Bayless class, and he was a sparring partner of Mark Schultz, right, the Olympic wrestler.
Oh, wow.
Who won the UFC? Remember that dude?
Mm-hmm. He was wasn't he the basis of that movie with Steve Carell?
Yeah, I think so. His brother Dave. Something happened where I don't know the exact story, but somebody killed him or something. Some crazy fan, I think, killed his brother Dave
at the DuPont house.
I don't know, man. I just know I know more about Mark, and he was the wrestling coach from BYU. He used to train with Walt a lot. Mm-hmm. And Walt also had trained with a bunch of Sambo guys and with Pedro. So he had this wrestling Sambo Brazilian jiu-jitsu style. It was way ahead of its time and this is 1996. So I was lucky enough to go sign up and train with him. And he was a super cool dude, just doing no-gi stuff back then, and just one of the greatest grapplers ever. Mark Schultz actually said in an interview that if you had to pick the greatest grappler, it would be Walt Bayless. And Walt Bayless is just the coolest dude ever. Taught me more about just how to be humble as a martial artist, not be a bully, and just because back then that shit was a superpower. You could go anywhere and just, if you knew jujitsu, you could just kill anybody because nobody knew it. So you had to be cool. You had to represent it well, which not everybody does.
Yeah. Now you got to be careful. You fuck with the wrong dude at a bar, you might be unconscious in a couple minutes.
I know, man. It's like, I remember last Halloween, I was out at a bar at a party, and some dudes are spraying silly string, and I'm there with my girlfriend, and she's, I'm not even paying attention. I'm looking at the band, and some dudes are spraying silly string on us, and she throws a drink on one of the dudes. These three dudes surround me, and one of them is like an MMA fighter. I'm just like, oh man, here we go. Thinking I'm gonna have to throw it out. I've been in, my fair share of scraps or whatever, and it turned out we had a friend in common. That's another MMA fighter that I know. Tyrone. I know Tyrone. We all broke out, and it was no big deal. But I remember thinking, like, that's how it is. Yeah. These days. People know stuff, man.
They do.
But you really should be careful with that because you can hurt someone accidentally and really screw up your life. If you're out there at a bar getting in a fight, man, you gotta kind of examine your life choices a little bit. You can't talk that down. That's really what you should learn from jiu-jitsu, is just to go, hey man, yeah, I'm in trouble. Let's
I don't know if everybody else is like me, but there was a day it like happened really quick where I wasn't ever out like looking for trouble, but there was a day and age where if trouble was there, I didn't mind if I was there. You know what I mean? I liked kind of being there and kind of getting mixed up in it. And then it was like overnight, that was the last thing that I wanted. And some people don't seem to make that transition as fast, and they're like, 40, 50, 60 years old, and they're still doing the same old shit. But it was very clear to me that this is probably time to not be doing that anymore.
It's stupid, man. It's like all the basic stuff they taught you in the like your junior high karate class. Your best move is run. This is only for self defense or to help people. It really is, man. The thing that martial arts should do for you more than anything is like refine your spirit and calm your mind. It's not about this. You know what I mean? Anybody can go and learn these techniques and be a badass, but you might also be a total jerk. You know what I mean? And what you have to remember is because you're handed jujitsu, because you went into the class, all this knowledge, it doesn't really belong to you. You didn't create it. You know, you should represent it well. It's a like a huge amount of information that a bunch of people who were really dedicated refined over years and years and years, right? And they passed it down to you. So you're part of that. And you shouldn't be a jerk about it, man. You shouldn't be out there uh, making a bad name for martial arts. You
Mm-hmm.
know, people need to think that. You need to realize people in the UFC, they're talking trash to hype up the fight. They probably don't actually hate the dude most of the time. They know how to sell a fight. There's a little bit of WWE going on, you know. So if you want martial arts to really benefit you, make sure it doesn't make you somebody who's dangerous, but is now just a total idiot because oh I know jujitsu. It's like so what, dude? You know, are you a cool person? Are you a good person? Are you like do people respect you? I'd rather people say, yeah, that dude knows a lot of jujitsu, he knows a lot of this or that, but he never hurt a fly. You know, that's how
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to be known, not like, yeah, but watch out for him. He's got a quick temper. People who have quick tempers they're no one to respect.
Well, and they
You
typically are the people that haven't been doing it that long, right? Because
know?
when you do it for a long time, you tend to be a lot more chill, a lot cooler because you've gained the confidence. And when people have confidence, they're not assholes. And that's I think
Yeah,
it's the same thing with bullying in school. You know, you hear people say it all the time. One of the best ways to keep somebody from being a bully is teach them how to fight
yeah,
because it's that kid that's getting his ass kicked at home or he's insecure about things and so then he takes it out on other people. But when you know how to do things, you have a greater respect and you're probably not going to carry around anger all the time.
yeah. You're not gonna have that chip on your shoulder because, you know, that's the thing when that whole bully, like anti-bullying thing was going on. I guess it's still going on. I kind of thought that you're just all turning into bullies now. You know, a lot of times people will become what they hate if they're not careful. It
Yeah.
happens a lot, right? So instead of saying, let's get the bully, it's like, oh, let's talk to the bully, like understand what's going on with you, dude. Let's befriend the bully so he doesn't keep being a bully. The best way to deal with your enemy is to try to make him a friend, right? So rather than trying to push out that bully and say, get out of here, you damn bully, and we're the bullies now, we're bullying the bully and making an outcast who's going to come back later with an AK or something.
Yeah.
Talk to that kid. What's going on with this kid at home? His parents, they don't have enough time. They're working so hard. Okay, maybe he can go over to, somebody else's house. Maybe we could all get him on the baseball team or something. So he feels good about himself. It's not going to be a problem for everybody. You know?
Yeah. Need more of it, man. Need outlets. It's I think whether it's athletics or even art,
Yeah.
I'm sure when you're painting, that's just a cathartic experience at times. You probably get lost in it.
Totally. I mean, the best times when you're painting, 5 hours will go by because you're in that other world. I used to want to be a tattoo artist, so studying traditional Japanese tattooing, and it's based on this form of art called ukiyo-e, right, which means the floating world, and it's kind of like just I guess, the dream world, imaginary world, but you're supposed to kind of create your own. And I read a lot of books about this, doing the research, trying to understand that form of art. And when I read that, I thought, God, isn't that cool to be able to make your own world where you know what I mean? You can go there. And I realized that's what drawing and painting always was for me. Because if I couldn't, if things are going bad in the outside world, hey, I can draw something that's so cool in this world, and then I can share that with other people, take them in there too. I
Mhm.
mean, it's such a gift, man. It's a gift that you have, and then it's a gift that you share. That's what it's all about, really. the art, the music. It's not about like trying to be a virtuoso, trying to be show off your talent. You know, who cares? There's so many people like Yngwie Malmsteen can play the shit out of the guitar, but most of his songs suck.
That's what I'm
You know what I
saying,
mean?
man. Yeah, that's
Because
what I mean.
he's not playing from the heart, really.
Yeah.
He's not being like Carlos Santana is probably not as technical as Yngwie, for sure he's not. But he's so much better. People like him so much more.
Yep.
And Yngwie's like, me, I am Yngwie. You know, nothing against Yngwie. I'm not trying to hate on Yngwie. I'm just using that as this.
Nah, I'm with you,
Don't
man.
even throw Yngwie under the bus. But you know what I mean.
Yeah.
It's like and God, I read something about this on the internet. Somebody was saying something about Joe Satriani. Same type of thing, dude. So technical.
Yep.
But for somebody who's that technical, you would think it would make you feel more.
Yeah, I don't want anybody to take this wrong. I was thinking the same thing when you were talking about Yngwie. I was thinking to say like Joe Satriani's he's so talented, but he's corny. Like to me, it's like corny. I'd rather listen to Slash, you know, miss a couple notes, but pour his heart and soul into a guitar solo that just it's not vanilla.
Yeah. Well, I don't know, man. It's like I remember certain like an art class I had in was it like junior high, right? And there was a shop teacher I think was teaching art, and we are supposed to draw something that was in the middle of the room, and I drew all these kind of weird faces and you know monsters and crap like a junior high kid's gonna draw behind me because I drew the stupid thing, and then I'm like I was done before everyone else. So what do you think I'm gonna do? And the dude actually circles it and crosses it out. I was like, that's wrong. Like, what are you talking about, dude? You should be encouraging creativity. This is art. He's like, no, man, let me just knock that little bit of imagination you had down. And I went, God, when I was in high school, they sent me to the university in that gifted and talented class.
Mm-hmm.
And I went there and I hated it, man. I took in there some drawing I did of like dragons, demons, and all this crazy crap flying through outer space. Really wild drawing, pretty good for like a 16-year-old kid, right? And I take it to the professor. Oh no, we don't want that. That's so trite and this and that. I'm like, what are you talking about? What do you want to draw a bowl of fruit over here like this, dude? Like that's art? Are you kidding? And I sloughed the class, dude. I didn't care. I was like, I just took half the day off every day and went and did whatever I want. I wasn't going to listen to that. Mm-hmm. I don't care if he's a college professor. He's telling me my art's no good. I'm like, dude, I should be teaching this class. I should be teaching you guys how to use your imagination. You all forgot. You started taking art class. You forgot how to do art. Oh, no, man. And I thought of that saying, those who can do, those who can't teach. I mean, that was totally it. And I think, a lot of that's true. I mean, not when it comes to, like good, I've had a lot of good martial arts teachers who, they, like the last dude I trained jiu-jitsu with, Suyon Quiros, dude here in town, really great jiu-jitsu competitor, Carlson Gracie, black belt, really cool dude, and also a great teacher. So there's some people who can do and teach, but there's some people who shouldn't be doing or teaching.
Yeah, all right. Yeah. So you had said like 5 hours can go by. I wanted to ask you, so, I think about the size of the painting that Rogan had in his studio. That's a canvas, right? So that's how large is something like that?
I mean, this one behind me, I don't know if you can see it very well, but it's about 6 feet tall. I mean, I used to design haunted houses. So I do huge murals, man. I did like the #1 haunted house in the world for years. Did one in Hong Kong, Ocean World. It's like their Disney over there, all based on Japanese ghosts. So I'm used to painting huge stuff, and we paint 9,000 square feet of art for that kind of stuff. So something like this is not a big painting to me. So that's why I can do mural size work no problem, because God, I've painted murals that are 300 feet wide, like 90 feet tall, using an automotive paint can, paint sprayer, airbrush, and stuff like that. So the first one I did for Joe, I did a lot faster. I mean, I think I stayed up real late every night for about a week, because at that time I was also working on a show, and doing a whole bunch of prints and everything. So I was just under the gun, and I got that one done pretty quick. But the last one I did for him, the Soul Catcher, which he actually just got that yesterday. There's a place in Texas. God, that one took me like 6 months because I kind of had time to actually work on it. So it depends, man. I have stuff I've been working on for like 2-3 years. It's just so much detail I never quite get it done, and then I have other stuff that it just kind of paints itself, and I can get it done in 2 or 3 days. It's weird. It just totally depends, you know. But I'd rather paint a mural-sized piece than something, you know,
Yeah.
just a small paint. It doesn't have the impact.
So you sent me Ghosts of Wounded Knee and White Bull, and
Right.
I know I wanted to ask you, like you had said when you shared that initially, that there was kind of a backstory, but that it was your own interpretation. I think back to like what we said earlier. Are you able, like, you cool to elaborate on what that story was about?
Dude, there's so much to that story. That series of paintings started when I was listening to this talk about string theory and the infinite manifestations of the universe, and how there's all these different realities and stuff. And it just fascinated me, because what the theory was saying, as I understood it, was like, if the universe is completely infinite, then those patterns have to repeat in some way. So that means there's other worlds out there that's just like this one, only a little bit different. Kind of some, like, I don't know if you've seen the show Rick and Morty, but kind of like that,
Yeah.
you know? So I was kind of tripping out on that. And I just, I try to bring whatever idea that I'm thinking of to my art. And most of my stuff is very different from Ghost of Wounded Knee. And I just thought, man, I'm gonna try to represent this kind of spirit world. I'm gonna just try to paint the spirit world. And so I just painted this figure with his arms outstretched, and then three, and they're all you. And then this guy is you in the past, and this guy is you in the future, and then all these other kind of faceless images. There's an elaboration on it behind me. I don't know if you can see that, but anyway, it's kind of like this multiverse of reality. All these sort of, and it's really symbolic of all these like masks that people wear, and who you were a few years ago isn't really who you are now, and who you are in a few years isn't going to be who you are now. But it's still you, like that essence of you, but just a lot of your ideas have changed. So you're actually, a lot of your cells have changed. So you're actually kind of a different person in a way. So that's my way of, trying to express that whole just fascination with the nature of reality. And then also, it has a layer of the ghosts of Wounded Knee, of these slain spirits of people and animals that still linger around this land because they were murdered, and they haven't been placated. We haven't honored them in the way that we should. So I want to show people that, and some people might get like offended by it and think, well, what are you doing painting this? Is this tragedy? I'm like, look at it. This is our common history. This is what your government supported. This is the circle that's been going round and round, and we have to take a look at it and realize, man, we've got third world countries in our country that we're oppressing and suppressing still with all kinds of different techniques. We need to stop doing that crap and try to make it right as much as we can. People will go on all day about my ancestor did this, my ancestor did that. He was Eric the Viking. My ancestor was, somebody cool that they're proud of.
Yeah,
right?
What did you do though?
Yeah, well, not only that, but what I'm saying is, what about all those ancestors that completely stole all the land from the Indians and enslaved all the black people and blew up a bunch of Chinese people while they're building the railroads? What about that dude? Are you proud of being related to him? What are you going to do? Or what are you going to say to make sure that you're not repeating that same thing? And some people say, well, I'm not responsible for the actions of my forefathers. Yeah, you're not. True. But you could do something, man, to make it a little bit better now. You could say something. You could at least learn something and be aware, and just make sure you're not being, just really insensitive to what other people are going through. Because there's a reason why black people are pissed off. There's a reason why Native Americans are disenfranchised and why it's so tough for them to get out of that. Because now, if you go up to reservation, dude, it's not like it is here where you got a bunch of job opportunity and what, you just being lazy. No, there's shit food up there. Just a bunch of junk food and alcohol right around there and drugs and nothing to do. So, you know what I mean? And if we really want the country to change, man, and there's people who can do things to help that. With my art, I make sure I donate like a painting every so often for a cause. Like I just donated one, the painting Wolf King, raised about $18,000 for people on the Navajo reservation who are struggling because of COVID, because it's so much harder for them to get supplies now. So that's just a small thing I can do, but everybody can do that. Whenever I sell a painting, dude, I've been doing this forever. I go find the worst off Indian I can in Salt Lake, and I give them some money. I might give them $100. I don't care if they go buy booze with it. You know what I mean? It's like, and some people might think that's useless, but it's just something I do, so I can say, hey, I took something from this culture, which I am. You know what I mean? I'm learning a lot from it, and I'm making a living off of it. So yeah, I should give back. I should give back everything I can, man. That's why I do the show with Leonard's Art, and I've helped to build a skateboard park and a basketball court on an Indian reservation. Just do a bunch of stuff like that, because that's what I should do. You should try to make the world a little bit better. If you're doing okay, man, why not try to help some other people?
That's beautiful. That's so cool. I was gonna ask you, like, if you get shit for painting Native American. I mean, because initially I wouldn't have thought so, but people are sensitive, and I get it, right? But no, that's awesome that you find the different ways to be able to go and give back to them for that.
It's weird, dude, but most of the time the only people who give me shit about painting Native Americans are not Native American. They're some busybody white dude who's like, nah, he's just repeating some bullshit that he heard somebody else say that he doesn't really understand. You know what I mean?
Go figure.
Most of the natives that I know, they can tell the difference between somebody who's representing them respectfully and someone who's not. And people ask me too, what do Native Americans think about your art? And I'm like, that's like asking what do white people think about your art, you idiot. There's a million different opinions. Every single one has a different opinion. They're not all together going, we don't like your art or we like your art. It's like,
yeah, how ironic. They don't even realize what they're saying is like the most racist. And
yeah, I don't know, man. I mean, people are going to criticize you no matter what you do. If you were painting Vikings or something, maybe they'd be like, are you Viking? What right do you have to paint Vikings? It's like, I don't need the right to paint Vikings. There's nobody who hands out a license to paint. Okay? You can paint whatever you want. I'm not painting anything offensive. I think I'm adding to the power and the beauty of the world, man. I'm trying to paint stuff that when you put it in your house, it's going to connect you with power and with freedom and with awe. You know what I mean? And there is nothing wrong with that. I'm making the world a better place. I know I am. Every single piece of art I put out there, I connect with people, man. I've been doing it my whole life. Wow. I love it, and I would never stop, even if it was illegal and I get hung for doing it. I'd still do it.
Well, it's why you and I are talking right now. You know what I mean? Because you did this. Because Joe put your stuff out there. I came across it. It just continues to go on and on and on. And I hope people listen to this and come away, go check out your stuff and get fascinated. I've gone beyond that now. It's like I started, getting glimpses of what the things you were painting. And then I'm like, well, what is this battle? And I want to go and kind of use my imagination and learn more about it. And it's fascinated me. And I told you something when we spoke last about a painting that hung in my house that my mom and dad got when I think it was even before I was born. So Christ, like 35 years ago. And they saw it on the side of the road. And I'm from Bradford, Pennsylvania, which is really close to the Seneca Nation of Indians, so a reservation. And I'm pretty sure it was a Native American woman that had it on the side of the road with blankets. And my mom stopped. And it was an Indian with a feather in his hair. And he had a Union Civil War jacket. and it hung in our house, and it was kind of like had a feel to it, had energy, like we were saying earlier. And my mom went to a psychic, or I think she actually had a psychic in the house. And when she came in, she pointed at the painting and was like, don't ever get rid of that. He watches over your family. And you were saying that you, in a lot of cases, you have this mindset that you hope the artwork that you provide people is something that can do the same.
Yeah, like a watchdog, or like I always think about it like those food dog things that sit outside the Chinese temple, to scare away evil spirits.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I'm trying to do, and like that's a cool thing to do for somebody's house. And I hang my art in my house, and I feel like it does that. Like every time you go by it, if you feel a little better, you feel a little stronger. I mean, there's people out there who have so much stress in their lives, like people that buy my originals. A lot of stuff is pretty pricey. Like Judge Judy bought one, Zach Brown, Joe Rogan, billionaires, some lord in Scotland, people in Germany, because the originals are pricey. They have to be, because I mean I spend a lot of time doing it. It's all the money I make. So it's kind of like those people have busy lives. They might be a surgeon, they might be an actor, they might be just getting off tour or whatever, and everybody's barking them 24/7. But maybe they look at that painting, and for a second they're out there on the plains, chilling with the Indians. They're in a different world where everything is simple and not so much just phony bullshit Babylon type stuff to deal with. You know what I mean? So that's what I'm trying to provide people, is just like that piece of music that puts you at ease, that movie that inspires you. And like anybody can do this. That's into it. That's what I mean. If I was a teacher, because I think teachers are so important, I would tell young kids or whoever I was teaching, don't exclude yourself from this. Don't tell a story about talent. I don't have any musical talent at all, but I learned to play the bass, and I've been in bands, and I've played big shows, and I've had so much fun playing in bands. But I didn't have any talent. I had desire, and I was like, man, I'm going to sit down and learn this bass. Yeah. I'm the worst computer person in the world, but I had a desire to get a job doing computer graphics, and I did it. So anybody out there that's like going to tell this story of, I want to do this movie, I want to do this or that, but I'm not talented. It's like, no, you're not motivated, you're not brave, and you're not ambitious. Because if you were all that, you wouldn't need to rely on the talent. Talent is just, it's like an excuse for lazy people why they don't do anything.
So true. Yeah. When your intentions are pure and you do things and you put it out there, you told me something, I believe it, right? You were saying how you'd kind of put the thought, you were watching Rogan's podcast and you were thinking about it. Like, man, my artwork would look so dope in that studio.
Yeah, dude, it's weird, man. I mean, I've told people this story. I don't know if everyone even believes it, but because it's almost too weird to be true. But I swear to God, this is totally true. Okay, I had paintings and prints up in this gallery in Park City, and they had told me Joe Rogan was looking at one of your paintings and he liked it. That's all they told me. Okay, and I just finished up with a show. I'm usually a huge snowboarder and I go all the time, but I took the whole winter off because I was working on this show at this big gallery. It was like my life's goal to do this show, right? And I finally got done with the show. I went snowboarding one day, and I get home from snowboarding, and like actually, I didn't even have Instagram at the time. I had an Instagram, but I just have my girlfriend taking care of it because I'm not really like a computer guy or whatever. I just don't pay attention to social media. I mean, I do now, but she comes running upstairs. Or no, I skipped ahead in the story. I listened to Joe Rogan podcast and stuff, just watching on my phone, right? And I was sitting there watching a podcast, and I remember there was a picture of I think it was Elvis and Jimi Hendrix on the wall behind him, and I was like, man, somebody did that art. I don't know if it's like Warhol or whose art that is. I was picturing my art there. Why not me? And I was visualizing, because I visualize stuff. That's my technique to do things. I think if you visualize something, man, you can make it happen just with sheer force of will. If you're strong enough, And that day I was visualizing that. Before I went snowboarding, I went up and had a really killer day snowboarding. Came home and I was sitting on the couch. My girlfriend comes run upstairs. Joe Rogan just posted your art. I'm like, what the fuck? Joe Rogan posted my art. Why? How did Joe Rogan know? And I look at it, I'm like, oh, he bought that. The gallery didn't even tell me that he bought it. So I didn't even know. And all of a sudden, he posted my phone. I still had my phone on my phone number on my website. I'm getting calls from people like, what's going on? And so I started print business overnight because I was like, man, I gotta cash in on this. If all these people are following me, I gotta sell them something. So I got a print business going overnight and been selling prints all over the world ever since. It's been crazy, man. I'm up to like I think 63,000 followers or something now. And yeah, and Joe's cool as hell, man. I mean, he has just been the coolest dude ever. Just he and I came up with this idea for my last painting, the one I just shipped to him, the Soul Catcher. He really liked this one called Voice of Thunder, which was turned to the side and had the magpie on its head.
Yeah.
Um, and he's like, what about that one, but facing forward? And usually when you do a painting with the bird on the head facing forward, it looks like Mickey Mouse ears or something. Just looks kind of cheesy. So I never do that. I always put it facing to the side. It just looks cooler. So I was like, oh man, Joe Rogan wants one facing forward. I got to figure this out. So I put the wings up, put another bird head, put more wings up, made it look all symmetrical. And then I remember he was moving to Texas. So I put the skull and the snake, like to represent Texas, kind of like a Pantera thing, whatever, with the snake on the album cover. And it just all came together, and he totally liked the painting. And I mean, I spent forever doing that painting, but it's done, called the Soul Catcher.
Yeah, it's so awesome, dude. I love it. It's I've got two of them. I have Ghost of Wounded Knee, and I have White Bull.
Okay. Yeah. Ghost of Wounded Knee. That's a weird one, man. That one, like, it's just got so many layers to it, so many different things to so many different people. I've had some people say like they saw that and it brought them to tears, and other people say they saw something like that in their dream or their vision. It's kind of cool to hear stuff like that. You know,
your kind of explanation of what you were thinking when you put that together is really like, I appreciate you sharing that, because it's given me a whole new perspective now when I look at it, and I feel like I relate to it a lot more now, because I've been in that place. Maybe you had said earlier, like midlife type crisis shit, right? But
yeah.
I just had a son. My son just turned 14 months the other day, and it's like a lot of life events happening and maturing, realizing, what my path is, but realizing that I'm different than who I was 5 years ago, and that I have to embrace that I'm going to be different 5 years from now and 5 years from then, and that I've got to keep the good parts of me and shed the bad and try to gain new experiences. And that's a big reason what this whole podcast is about. Like, initially my brother and I were doing a podcast, and I loved it. It was so much fun. It was actually really geared towards the cannabis space. It was called the Bud Brothers, and we were having a blast, but there was a part of it.
Yeah. What are we talking about?
Exactly. But it was fun. But after a while, like, we kind of got caught up in trying to become like, I hate to say the like famous word, but like we wanted notoriety for this show, and it quickly became not so fun anymore. And when the pandemic happened, I had this itch, because he and I hadn't done any podcasts for probably like 7-8 months. And I just was like, you know what? I have a couple of friends that I've met just through happenstance and, being, bold enough to reach out and talk to people who I find interesting. And I started to do this, and I got to a point where I was like, I don't even care who's listening. I'm building up this library bank of really awesome conversations with MMA fighters and musicians and a neuroscientist and, an artist, and, the list goes on. And that's something that I take with me. Even if all the footage disappears tomorrow, I take all of that with me. That's all with me. And it's also with the people that I've connected with. And the coolest part is that it is being listened to. And so these conversations are being now absorbed by, fuck, dude, I was like scrolling through the metrics, and it's like 19 different countries that are downloading the podcast. And it's nowhere near the scale. I don't have billionaires buying my paintings and Joe Rogan calling me up to custom make artwork, but it's coming from a small town in Pennsylvania where I didn't think that making more than $50,000 was even humanly possible, to getting messages from somebody in Amsterdam saying like, "Hey man, awesome podcast." And I'll get them for this, people are going to be just blown away because you've become such kind of like a cultural figure in a way. You probably don't want to hear that, but you have, that it's just really cool to give that to people. So I can't imagine what it must feel like to provide art, which is so much deeper than just a conversation, but
Yeah. I mean, it's humbling, dude. It's like, I'm shipping all these prints out. Sometimes I stop and go, wow, like all these are going to be in somebody's house. All these are part of somebody's family now. All the kids in that house are going to go, oh, the Indian is whatever. They're going to have stories about that. They're going to grow up around it, you know?
yeah.
And it's like, it's what I always wanted to do. Anybody who knows me will tell you, I told you that he did what he said he's going to do. I told everyone will know who I am. I'm going to be the top Western artist in the world. I don't care what you say. I'm doing this. You know what I mean? But it's still, I'm not arrogant about it. I'm excited. I'm grateful. But most of all, I'm just, man, I'm satisfied that I got to communicate what I wanted to say with all these people. Like when I was a real young kid, me and a lot of my friends started these punk bands around town, and we wanted to say something because that was the cool thing to do back then in the 80s. You wanted to talk about, use your voice and speak up and rise up and everything. And man, if you actually get to do that in your life, you're lucky, and you should be careful about what you say and make sure you really mean it. You know what I mean? You shouldn't be talking just to talk, painting just to paint. You should be thinking, man, do I really want to add this? And that is what has dawned on me the most. Is like, now shit, like my stuff is important more than I thought. I thought it was just me, painting what I want, but now I got to realize this is how people are part of how they're kind of going to get into history. So I feel like I got to make sure I represent it well. Same thing that I was talking about with martial artists is like, man, you put on that gi and you're part of that family. Don't go out into the world and be an asshole. You know what I mean? And don't paint Native Americans in a disrespectful way. Don't be exploitive about it. Make sure you're learning those lessons. I mean, it says a lot of Native American cultures, they'll say, they have this saying called walk in a sacred manner. They'll say, we pray all day. We don't just pray on Sundays, right? And that goes back to what I was telling you about what Benny the Jet says about his affirmations. How he says, just always watch what you say and use your words to heal, not to hurt. I mean, that's an important thing, man, to speak impeccably and to watch your step and walk the path, and don't just go through this life like what you do and what you say doesn't matter. There's so many people excuse me, on the internet these days who are just sitting there talking so much shit. And it's like, man, you don't realize you're disrespecting yourself. You're dishonoring yourself talking like that. And you're dishonoring your mom and your dad and everyone who loves you. And just really life itself. If the best thing you can think of to say is to put somebody down and make fun of their project or whatever, man, maybe you shouldn't say anything. Maybe you don't really have anything to say. Maybe you should wait until you have a good idea. Because it's like, there's this Henry Rollins song where there's this line that said, the ones who don't do anything are always the ones who try to put you down, right? And that's so true, because the ones who are doing stuff, they're thinking about their ideas, like what kind of projects they want to tell you what I got going on. They're not like, this move, oh, here, did you see that stupid comment he made on the internet? Really? That's what you pay attention to is Facebook and Instagram drama? Why? You got nothing better to do? Why don't you go write a song, dude? Get a life. That's what I think. Like I'm too busy doing what I'm doing to worry about what other people are doing, or what they think, or what they say. It's like, man, if we all just, like what I was talking about a football team in this country, and how much a bunch of like just little gimmies people are, and telling everybody else what to do. You're doing this wrong, you're doing that wrong, pointing their fingers all over the place. Think about this finger, when you're pointing it out, there's 3 more pointing back at you. So that's the fingers you should be worried about, not going, they didn't do it. It's like, what are you doing? Man, maybe if we all just did a little bit, things would get better. Maybe if instead of everybody just complaining and putting each other down and saying the left is wrong, the right is wrong, it's like stop worrying about what they're doing wrong and start worrying about what you can do right. You know, it's like that. I mean, I think it was Kennedy that said, "What not what you can, what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country." I mean, people don't think like that anymore. But man, what could you do for your country? Could you just maybe shut the hell up and quit trying to make things worse and quit trying to throw fuel on the fire? If you know, and if you can't do that, then say something good. Do something good, man. Put something good out there, and it's gonna come back to you. You know,
Well,
that's all I'm trying to do.
and if they can't, then they should turn all their stuff on mute and they should go to your website. What is your website again?
My website is gregovertonartprints.com. I'm such a non-computer guy. What is my website? What is my email? It's but yeah, you can get my prints on there. You can go follow me on Instagram, Greg Overton Fine Art, and you know, message me with all your crazy questions, and I might answer it. I might not, but you know,
Dude,
you'll at least get to check out some cool art, hopefully.
oh, it's mind blowing. I highly recommend anybody that's listening to this go and check it out. Greg, dude, congratulations and continued success with everything. I'm so thankful to be able to have connected with you, and hopefully this is the, you know, just the beginning of more conversations in the future. But you know, be safe out there, and I'm looking forward to what's coming next. And I'll send you some photos once I get my two framed up and hung somewhere so that you can kind of see it.
All right,
But
cool, man.
looking forward to
Yeah,
it.
really good talking to you. Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Most,
And thanks everyone out there for listening. And I hope you enjoyed it.
thanks, brother.
Right on, man. Have a good
Have a
night.
good one.
See you, bro.